Today we're going to be talking about 5 underrated movies from the 1980s, and I would almost bet that at least some of you watching this video have probably never seen some of these movies, and some of you have possibly never even heard of some of these movies. Now, if you try and talk to people about 80s movies, usually you're going to get a similar answer.
Oh, I love 80s movies. I love The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Pretty in Pink.
And all of those are amazing movies, and I love every movie that I just mentioned, but there is so much more when it comes to 80s movies. And although every movie that I just mentioned is amazing, there are a lot of other movies that, in my opinion, I feel like they deserve to be talked about just as much as those other movies. And so today, these are just 5 random movies that I picked. There are so many more movies that fall into this category, but these were the first 5 that came to mind. I don't know, maybe I feel like these are the 5 most underrated. Probably not, but these were just the first 5 that came to mind.
Number 5, Crush Groove.
I love this movie so much, and it still amazes me how underrated it is considering how many stars are in this movie. Now, I should probably start by saying that Crush Groove is not for everybody. If you are not a fan of rap music, if you don't like that whole scene, then you might not like Crush Groove. However, if you at all like rap music, breakdancing, if you're interested in just how some of that stuff got started, then I think you will definitely enjoy Crush Groove. Made some little notes here so that I won't lose track because there's a lot to talk about. Crush Groove is a 1985 film put out by Warner Brothers, so it was put out by a big company, but somehow it still just got kind of swept under the rug. It stars Blair Underwood as Russell Walker, and this movie is loosely based on Russell Simmons and him starting Def Jam Records. Except for in the movie, it's Russell Walker, and he's not starting Def Jam Records, he's starting Crush Groove Records. Now, Russell Simmons does make a small cameo in the movie, and somehow, back then, he looked about 30 years younger than he does now. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. Along with starring Blair Underwood, it also stars superstar producer Rick Rubin. He plays Russell's partner in Crush Groove Records, and in real life, he was Russell Simmons' partner for Def Jam Records. It also stars Run DMC, and Run is Russell Simmons' real-life brother. He plays Russell Walker's brother in the movie, so everything is kind of matching up there. It also stars Sheila E., Curtis Blow, the Fat Boys. It features the Beastie Boys, a very young 17-year-old LL Cool J, New Edition, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Full Force. Now, I first saw Crush Groove on cable when I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and I instantly fell in love with it. I have seen Crush Groove so many times, I couldn't even begin to tell you how many times I've seen it. I will admit that parts of it are a little bit cheesy. Most of the people that I just mentioned are not professional actors, so some of the acting is a little off, but you know, I think that's part of the whole thing. Overall, it is a great movie, and again, if you have any interest in rap music, or again, just kind of how things got started, then I think you will definitely enjoy Crush Groove.
Number 4, Silver Bullet.
So probably out of all the movies that we're going to talk about today, this one might be the least forgotten movie, but still, I don't hear enough people talking about it. The way that people talk about The Lost Boys as far as vampire movies go, they should be talking about Silver Bullet the same way as far as werewolf movies go. Silver Bullet is a 1985 film that is based on the 1983 Stephen King novel Cycle of the Werewolf, and it stars a somewhat young Corey Haim and Gary Busey. It's about a young boy, Marty Kosla, played by Corey Haim. He is in a wheelchair and he's kind of just trying to get through life and figure things out. He has an older sister who loves him, but she also kind of resents him, and so they have a strange relationship. people start mysteriously dying in the small town where Marty lives, and he discovers that there is a werewolf, and he doesn't know what to do or who he can tell. He knows no one is going to believe him. Again, he doesn't have a great relationship with his sister, and so the only person that he thinks he can confide in is his somewhat crazy uncle, who is played by, you guessed it, Gary Busey, and he does a very good job playing the crazy uncle. I think Corey Haim's acting is great in this movie. Gary Busey's acting is great in this movie. I think they're good together. All the characters are good. The actor who plays the werewolf, and I'm not going to give away who that is in case you've never seen it, but the actor who plays the werewolf, he does a great job as well. The movie is not too scary, but scary enough, and it's a classic. If you have not seen it, hey, it's Halloween season. Go watch it. Even if you have seen it, but maybe you haven't watched it in a while, go check it out.
Number 3, I'm Gonna Get You Sucka.
So I'm Gonna Get You Sucka is a 1988 comedy, I believe, written and directed and starring Keenan Ivory Wayans, who a lot of people know as the creator and star of In Living Color. He also went on to make a lot of other movies. But for me, in my opinion, I'm Gonna Get You Sucka is his best movie. It is my favorite. It stars a lot of other people from his family, like a lot of his movies do, including Damon Wayans. It also stars, I gotta look because there are so many people in this movie. It also features David Alan Grier, also from In Living Color, Jim Brown, Isaac Hayes, John Vernon, Kadeem Hardison, John Witherspoon, I already mentioned Damon Wayans, Clarence Williams III, Eve Plum, Chris Rock, who he has a very small part, but it's probably one of the most memorable scenes in the movie.
One rib.
One rib.
I sure am hungry.
It is a spoof comedy, a parody of the black exploitation movies, and it is hilarious from beginning to end. And as far as the parody movies go, I think I'm Gonna Get You Sucka is right there with like Naked Gun and Airplane, but it just doesn't get talked about enough. If you ask somebody if they like parody comedies, they're gonna say, oh yeah, I love Airplane, I love Top Secret, but you very rarely hear people talk about I'm Gonna Get You Sucka. If you have not seen it and you are a fan of those kind of movies, I definitely recommend watching it. And then once you're done, come back here to YouTube and watch the filming location video that I made about it. It was one that I really enjoyed putting together because since people don't really talk about the movie, they also don't talk about the filming locations, and no one had really done it. So I had to hunt down a lot of these locations, and I really enjoyed doing it, and I'm really happy that I put it together. So again, if you watch the movie and you enjoy it, then you can come back here and watch my filming location video. It'll be like pairing a fine wine with a good meal, I assume. I don't know. I don't drink.
Number 2, Johnny Dangerously.
Now this is another one that I am so surprised how underrated this movie is, probably considering how big the star of this movie is. It stars Michael Keaton, but it's also directed by Amy Heckerling. She of course brought us Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Clueless, Look Who's Talking, European Vacation. It also stars Joe Piscopo, Mary Lou Henner, Peter Boyle. It features Dom DeLuise, Dick Buttkiss, Danny DeVito. This is another comedy, another parody movie. It's a parody of old 30s gangster films, and it is basically the story of Johnny Kelly, aka Johnny Dangerously. It starts with him catching a boy trying to steal a puppy, and so he is now making this boy listen to his life story and how he started out just trying to make a little extra money to pay his mom's medical bills, but then he got wrapped up in the whole thing and became this mafia kingpin. And the movie is absolutely hilarious. It has so many good quotes. This is another one that my brother and I used to just quote to each other all the time when we were kids. But for some reason, I never hear anybody talk about this movie. Now, in my opinion, this is one of my favorite Michael Keaton movies. Probably not my absolute favorite, but it's one of them. I'm not going to say it's his best movie, but I think it's a great movie. Please, if you have not seen Johnny Dangerously, and if you are a fan of spoof comedies, then after you are done watching I'm Gonna Get You Sucka, then watch Johnny Dangerously.
Number 1. Rude Awakening.
I think out of the 5 movies that I talked about today, this one has got to be the most underrated, the most never heard of, the most never seen. It stars Cheech Marin and Eric Roberts and a whole bunch of other famous people. You know, I'm just going to let this guy tell you.
Cheech Marin, Eric Roberts, Julie Haggerty, Robert Carradine, Cindy Williams, Buck Henry, Andrea Martin, Cliff DeYoung, Louise Lasser.
The movie begins in the late 60s. It's about a bunch of hippies. The 2 main characters that are played by Eric Roberts and Cheech, they've got a split because the FBI is coming after them. And so they leave the country, they go live in the jungle, and the movie then fast forwards about 20 years. They're still living in the jungle, and then, I don't want to give away too much, but I'll just say they stumble upon something that they're not supposed to know about, and they decide that they have to go back to New York to try and stop this thing that they're not supposed to know about. And then from there, it's kind of your basic fish out of water story. They come back to New York City and they are completely blown away by how much things have changed and how much pollution there is and how self-absorbed everybody is and how none of their friends are the same. And it is a hilarious movie, a very heartwarming movie, and it has a very good message. I first saw this movie when it first came on cable, and for whatever reason, I instantly fell in love with it. For a very short time, this movie actually made me want to be a hippie. I probably shouldn't admit that, and yeah, that's probably not a good selling point for the movie, but it's because of the good message that the movie had. Luckily, I realized that you could do nice things and be a good person without being a hippie. Now, I will admit that there are some parts of the movie that are a little silly, a little cheesy, but I think that's part of the charm of the movie. Now, this movie is really hard to find. You're not going to find it streaming anywhere. If you find a DVD of it, it's going to be a bootleg. You can find some VHS on eBay if you look around. I was able to find it on YouTube. I don't know if there's multiple uploads or not, but the upload that I watched was surprisingly a good quality upload that had no glitches or anything in it. And so good job to whoever uploaded that movie. I had probably not seen it in 30 years, and I'm happy to say that it stood the test of time. I enjoyed it just as much as I did back then. I watched it because I was talking about it with my wife and son. They had never seen it. We watched it on YouTube, and they enjoyed it too. So if you have not seen Rude Awakening, go on a search, but the odds are YouTube is going to be your only option. All right, that is going to do it for today's list. So what do you think? Am I right? Are all of those movies underrated? How many of those movies have you seen? How many of those movies have you heard of? Please let me know in the comments, and then hopefully you're going to go watch some of those movies, and you can come back here to the comments and you can tell me how wrong I was and what bad taste I have in movies. Or hopefully maybe you'll come back and tell me how great those movies were. I hope that I did introduce at least a few of you to some movies that you had never heard of and that you end up enjoying those movies. But again, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many underrated 80s movies, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do this again in the near future. All right, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.